It's the first Saturday of June, and as always, every first Saturday of June on Right to Life Radio, we are joined by Linda Talia from Right to Life of Central California with our Stories from the Sidewalk. Linda works for us at Right to Life of Central California. She interacts with women and couples going into and out of Planned Parenthood to offer them alternatives to abortion. And welcome back on the show, Linda.
Thank you, and as always, I love doing this.
Okay. Well, good. So I know you've got a couple of interesting stories from this past month. And one good story, one also good but odd and interesting sort of story. So let's talk about, you had one person who chose life over the course of this month. So why don't we start off with that?
So both stories are good food for thought.
Right.
Where you can start thinking through, and because this topic of pro-choice versus pro-life is so complex and volatile. And then you kind of have to know, like, where do you stand no matter what?
Right.
I think that you can be compassionate, considerate, understanding, and still be able to stand where you stand.
Right. Agreed.
So the first story is about a mom who chose life.
Cool.
So leading up, it seems like Wednesdays have been really busy for abortions, and it's just like rolling. People are going in and
yeah. Well, people often ask us, like, what days does Planned Parenthood do abortions? And it's kind of like, well, they don't share their schedule with us for one thing.
I didn't get the call.
Yeah. Well, there used to be, and it's kind of, one, they don't share their schedule with us. But two, I get the sense, particularly with the prevalence of the abortion pill, that it's happening pretty much every day. I would imagine. Yeah.
And every day in every way.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of picturing myself standing out there, and Wednesday is rolling and it's busy, and I feel like I'm like chasing after people, not literally, but you know how when the train's going by and you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, would you like a flower? Would you like a flower? How about you? Would you like a flower?
Yeah.
So, but then there's also the ones that
and for those who don't know, for context, Linda generally tends, when she's approaching people, to offer them a flower and then engage them with conversation. So anyway, you're not just... And someone from the outside listening in would be like, why is she giving them flowers? I thought she was talking with people about abortion. Anyway, that's the icebreaker.
The funny thing is, today someone said, I said, would you like a free flower? And she was like, why? And I said, well, so you'll talk to me. I say that pretty often,
way to be frank about it.
And then they're like, fine.
Okay.
I'll listen to you for a second.
Sure.
But anyway, so the other thing that's happening is I can kind of keep an eye on these different little scenarios happening through the parking lot. There's usually one or two guys either in the background, or I can tell.
Waiting in the car.
Waiting by
the door. Yeah.
Smoking a cigarette, smoking pot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was this one couple, and I was watching them, and I knew that he was persuading her to have an abortion, and he was just sort of like putting his arm around her, kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's the crummy thing, is it's always being presented as, oh, it's a woman's choice, it's a woman's choice, it's a woman's choice. And it's not to say that all men in that situation are coercing women to have abortions, but the kind of pressure or persuasion that is happening, it's often not necessarily, it's not always necessarily like what the woman wants that she's freely, quote, choosing to do. Yeah.
And I have to be fair and say I've seen it both ways, where I've seen the guy just being like,
I don't want her to do this.
What else to do? What do I do?
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of scenes going on. So there was this scene going on, and I kept trying to talk to him, talking to her, and then he sent her in. He really pretty much sent her in, basically shoot her in. And he came over and he's like, what do you think you're doing? Don't you think they already feel bad enough? Why are you adding insult to injury? And I just said, well, I'm just offering help.
Yeah.
Well, and I go, is there I'm offering help. That's it. And he was like, but. And I was like, okay. So I was super frustrated anyway. And I thought, this is just going to be one of those days where it's going to be a mill. So I saw another girl walking up, not a girl, but a woman walking up, and I just offered her the flower, and she came walking up and took the flower. And so I just said, are you here? What are you here for? She said, well, I'm going to have an abortion. And I said, well, why? I mean, in my situation, there's no reason not to ask the questions.
Well, yeah.
They're already halfway there.
Yeah. You got to address the problem.
So let's just cut to the chase.
Yeah, cut the crap. Yeah.
If they were going to say something, then, and I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just like, well, why?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I can't think of any other way to do it. I don't know what to do.
Right. Well, and that's so often, again, it's, they're freely choosing. Like, they feel like they don't have another option.
She's in tears.
So many of these people.
I don't know what else to do. And I was like, well, do you want to tell me more about it? Mm-hmm. And she said, yes.
Okay.
So I said, okay. Do you want to come over to the building and talk about it? And she said, yes. Mm-hmm. And so we walked over to the building. We started talking about it. And this, I'm going to say, was a hard case because it's one of those where, you know, you're human and you start wondering, like, how do I get to the bottom of this? So the part of the story is that she has already had 5 kids, and all 5 kids have been removed from her home and have been adopted to other families.
Yeah.
So she's been through some hard times, and she'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like I've been here, I've been there, and I can't do this again. I cannot have another child taken away.
Yeah.
And so I just said, well, what do you think about hope?
Yeah.
Because if you choose life, you're choosing hope
for
this child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't, there's nothing. You got no chance.
It's all done.
So you're going to go through exactly what you've gone through in a different way. You are going to choose.
Yeah. Death. It's losing it's losing a child in a different and more final way.
And she said, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. And so then we just started talking about her situation, and I ended up saying, how about I refer you to Obria? Mm-hmm. And she said, yes, I'd like to go.
Okay.
And so it just started rolling out, and she definitely needs some resources.
Yeah.
But the thing about being out there long enough or being old enough, you start to realize that a day can make a difference.
Sure.
You don't know how someone's going to turn out later.
Right.
There's all kinds of stories about people who are totally down and out, and then they change. The My Pillow guy, what's that guy's name?
Yeah, Mike Lindell. Then he was dirt poor, broke, or whatever. Yeah. Well, even the guy who started, what is it? Some big fast food chain. I think the guy who started KFC. He was like age 60. He was completely broke and his life was over. And then by the time he died at age 90, he was like a KFC chicken gazillionaire, you know?
Yeah. So you just don't know. And I find that with most of these women who are trying to decide whether to choose life or not, they just need to like talk about it, sort it out themselves. And I might plug in 1 or 2 things.
Come up with a game plan.
Yeah. And just say, well, you know, this is how it was for me. These are the resources we have. Here's some other scenarios of different people. And I can't make you any promise that it's going to be great, but I can make you a promise that you're not going to have the regret of abortion.
Right. Well, and that's the thing with so many of these people, so many of the stories you have is it's people choosing abortion because, again, they feel like it's their only option. They don't know what to do, and they haven't really taken the time to sit down, assess what assets they do have, assess what, resources they do have available. And, even in a situation like this, and you also see kind of how Planned Parenthood sort of takes advantage of this. So it in the sense of like, okay, just looking at like healthcare availability, there are a ton of people on Medi-Cal. There are very few clinics that take Medi-Cal for OB or GYN care. People get in the habit of going to Planned Parenthood for gynecology services, and then they're pregnant. They go there, and the Planned Parenthood on Fulton Street doesn't have prenatal care. They have abortion. So that if that's your only resource, if that's the only thing you know, well, of course that's the answer that's going to be presented to you. And you just need to, and I think that's the value of what you do at Right to Life, what we do with Right to Life, is just give someone the opportunity to sit down and think it through.
Yeah. That's really the bottom line. I mean, we were just talking about things, and she was like, well, I'm homeless. And I said, well, what does that mean to you? Because I've definitely seen the homeless, the ones that are sleeping on the sidewalk. Well, she isn't sleeping on the sidewalk. She was sleeping at a family member's house.
Right.
So I was like, well, what next? You can you're probably not going to go here. It sounded like she had a network of family members. She just didn't have her own
place. Yeah.
So we talked about that, talked about the other resources, and then, she was going to go over to Oberia, talk about more things, get prenatal care, and get a day further into hope. Mm-hmm. Really.
Right. Yeah.
And we ended up having her over for lunch at the building. Because I feel like once we've done the initial conversation, most of the moms need to come back and kind of talk about.
Yeah.
Then, now
a difficult situation like that. And that's the thing with our ministry that I'm very proud of and I think is smart is sometimes pro-life organizations will sort of take the attitude of, on that one day, we convinced this person to say, no, I'm not going to have an abortion. And, mission accomplished, wash your hands. This person chose not to have an abortion. And then meanwhile, maybe completely unbeknownst to them, that person just had an abortion the next week and just didn't tell you about it. Whereas we're trying to kind of like follow up and say, hey, let's talk. Let's have lunch. What else do you need? Can we help you with this? Can we help you with that? So you guys following up with her and having lunch is like, Right to Life's happy to pay for that lunch. I mean, that's the whole, the function of this ministry is to help people and equip people so they can actually do this.
So many of our donors saying, so what happens here? What do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
And I can list off the things. Yeah, we need to have lunch with these moms because they need what is missing in our world, which is a network.
Right.
And they need to know. They also kind of need to come back. I kind of get this, that to save face.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't really want to talk about that. I mean, I wish I wasn't there, and I don't want anyone else to go there. But now I'm on board.
Yeah,
I'm on board. I'm in life, and this is good. And most of the time they want to connect a little more throughout, or more, or a little more, or a lot more. But I don't. You know what you were talking about. I don't really feel successful unless I still have a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
Till the baby's born.
And
even later.
Yeah. Now, when we return, we're going to talk about another interesting encounter Linda had, this with a woman who chose life for her twins who were conceived in a circumstance of sexual assault and how to talk through that scenario. So that is next on Right to Life Radio, a production of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org.